Aaron.
Yeah?
Who the hell do you think you are? No, if you were one of the band members in Hardcore Logo, which one would you be? Who the hell in the band do you think you are?
I don't know. Joe Dick, I guess. Isn't that the cool choice?
No, but who would you really be?
Probably that one.
Honestly, I think you would be Billy Talent.
Yeah?
Yeah, because he's interested. He's kind of like over being like a poor and ideology driven kind of guy, and he wants to be artiste, and he wants to be the big time, you know. He wants to be famous, he wants to be rich, he wants to be part of a band that's getting somewhere.
Who would you be?
Well, I think for sure in my youth I would have been John Aschenberger, unfortunately. Oxenberger, the one who was quietly writing away in his diary while everyone else is being crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would have been me for sure. But I don't know. Now I'm very interested in selling out. So yeah, I might be a Billy Talent a bit as well.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Sweater Weather, a podcast about Canadian arts and culture. Who the hell do I think I am? I think I'm Aaron.
And who the hell do you think I am?
You have to say it.
I'm Naomi.
Okay.
Duh.
So today we're talking about the 1996 film Hardcore Logo, directed by Bruce McDonald and based on the 1993 poetry collection by Vancouver poet Michael Turner.
Are you sure it's a poetry collection? Because I thought it was a novel that's kind of written a bit like a poetry
I think maybe it's
collection.
called the novel in verse, but it's all in different. I mean, have you read it?
No, but I've read about it.
I've read it, and it reads more as narrative poetry than
does it?
than a novel. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But maybe the book self-identifies as a novel, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's fine. It's an interesting book. I mean, I remember back in the 90s, I think I probably saw this movie first. It came out in 96. I was in high school. Like that was like right smack at the moment when I'm getting really artsy and thinking of myself as an artiste. And so cool Canadian culture like this would have really appealed. And I don't really remember the first time I saw it. I don't. But I saw it when I was in high school. I'm pretty sure I rented it.
Okay, because you graduated from high school in
98.
98. So I graduated from high school in 96, and I remember hearing about it probably like that year. I remember that's when I started hanging around with this kind of punk household.
Punk household, an alternative lifestyle.
Yeah. Like
it was a bunch of roommates.
It was a bunch of roommates who were artistically leaning, and some of them were in bands.
Involved in the alternative economy as well.
Involved in the alternative music scene and the alternative economy. Seriously, I was living with a bunch of artistically leaning young people in a house that no one ever cleaned. So I think it's fair to call that a bit of a punk house. And everyone wore vintage clothing. I guess it was more of just a 90s young person house. Anyway, my point is that they were all a bit older than me, and I remember at one point one of them mentioning Bruce McDonald, and it must have been like that year, and I was like, who's that? And they were all like, duh, Bruce McDonald, the filmmaker, Hardcore Logo. And I was
all these
like,
cool indie kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And then I quickly tried to find out who it was so I could be in the know. And then I think Hardcore Logo had just come out, and I knew all about it starting then, but just watching it, I either didn't remember it at all because I never saw it, or just because that was a long time ago.
You may never have saw it.
Like, I feel like I heard so much about it for so long that I thought I'd seen it. Mm-hmm. But then watching it, I was like, I do not feel like I've seen this before.
The film stars Hugh Dillon, and this is obviously the brilliant move of the movie really is to cast a real punk rocker as the lead singer of the fictional band Hardcore Logo. And I don't know, did you know anything about Hugh Dillon as the head of the Headstones?
Not really.
Not really. I remember them. I just remember liking their stuff.
I remember them existing.
Smile and wave. I smile and wave. Anyway, Hugh Dillon, this was his first acting role, and he really is like really good.
He is really good.
He's a really good actor, and he went on to have an acting career.
Oh.
So he's still like a pretty well-known television actor. Played in this and that. I remember he was in the Trailer Park Boys movie. He's been it's probably his biggest success has coming recently as an actor, where he was on Yellowstone. If you remember him, I mean, you didn't.
Oh my gosh.
We've watched Yellowstone. He was like the park ranger.
Was he?
Who's buddies with Kevin Costner.
Okay.
He's his underling, essentially.
Okay,
He's like
okay.
a kind of a park
I
warden.
knew he looked familiar.
He's a kind of a park warden type, and he ends up getting offed. As many people in that show do get killed. He gets killed maybe in, I don't know, season 4 or something.
Okay.
But then he went on. So that show, Yellowstone, is created, produced maybe too by what's his name, Taylor Sheridan.
Yeah.
And he's had such success with Yellowstone that he went on to make all these other shows for Paramount Network. 1883 with like Harrison Ford in it or something. I might be mixing them up, but because this guy Taylor Sheridan's made so many different shows. But one of his more recent shows is one called The Mayor of Kingstown. Oh. And it is co-created by Hugh Dillon.
Oh.
So he clearly made friends with Taylor Sheridan through his work in Yellowstone.
Yeah, well, good for him.
And that shows, benefits from Canadian tax credits because it's filmed in Kingston and Hamilton. It's supposed to be set, though, in like a Midwestern Rust Belt town, maybe in Michigan.
Highly
somewhere.
related to Hardcore Logo, then.
Same kind of hard-bitten, rough and tumble, tough guy kind of.
Okay.
That's Hugh Dillon's character.
That's what he does. Okay.
Yeah, Hugh Dillon plays the villain in the Trailer Park Boys movie. Yeah, I think he's like he's like a strip club owner.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay, I can picture that.
Him. And
like a bit of a brute.
A bit of a brute. The other lead in Hardcore Logo is Callum Keith Rennie. He's lead guitarist Billy Talent. And that character name, it's spelled Tallent, but that character name inspired the real Canadian rock band Billy Talent, but Talent spelt the normal way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of Billy Talent, but something else I found but you know who's really good in this movie too? The drummer in the band, played by Bernie Colson. His name is Pipe Fitter, and he's just like he's
dingus.
He's a dingus, and he's a loudmouth, and he's played for Comic Effect quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I just looked him up. He had an acting career as well, but like lately he's been having issues. He's unhoused in Vancouver. There's an interview with him.
No way.
Yeah, he's
That's horrible.
Now. Yeah. There's an interview with him looking really rough. You're like, oh my gosh, poor guy. So those are the leads of this movie. Like,
you forgot about John Oxenberger.
Oh yeah, John Oxenberger is played by John Piper Ferguson. Again, he's had a good career in acting, lots of television work. Hardcore Logo is like, maybe people listening to this might know this movie a lot better than we do, because it's kind of like became kind of a cult hit. Mm-hmm. And there's been, all kinds of academic books about it, academics.
So many documentaries about it and books about it, and like people putting it on the list of like the best 5 Canadian movies of all time and stuff. Yeah,
there's like comic book based on Hardcore Logo, a stage play. There was a tribute album besides the really good soundtrack. Mm-hmm. Now, all the songs on Hardcore Logo, most of them are performed by Hugh Dillon. The music is performed and written by Swamp Baby. Swamp Baby is the name of a Toronto band who performs with Hugh Dillon. And the lyrics are mostly by Michael Turner, the author of the novel in verse.
Oh, because the lyrics were part of the book.
That's right. The book, from what I remember, is like snippets of lyrics, snippets of dialogue, snippets of interior monologues that kind of add up to a kind of a collage of this band's experience as it goes on tour.
Okay.
So apparently this was going to be made as a straight ahead drama.
Oh.
Just a drama.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
But then they got the idea to make it as a mockumentary, in a mockumentary style. And that adds quite a bit to
really
it.
Works.
It works. It
really works, yeah.
It gives the whole thing a punk feel. It was a very low budget movie. They didn't even really know if they were going to have enough money to make it. But Hugh Dillon just like got on a plane anyway and is like, well, we'll just make the movie until we don't have any money anymore.
I mean, it's not that low budget. Like the cinematography is pretty, like, what's the word? High quality.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good.
Yeah, it looks really good.
I mean, Bruce McDonald obviously knew what he was doing when it came to making, good movies on the cheap. Like, they were supposed to be on a real road trip across Canada, but then they weren't. They were just we see them on the road in a van driving around, but that was all just in British Columbia.
Really?
They didn't end up going that far.
So it's supposed to like be BC all the way to Manitoba and back, but so they never actually went past British
So this
Columbia.
fictional band is going on a reunion tour. They had been popular from 1978 to 1991. It was Joe Dick and Billy Talent, who are the sort of the main relationship in the band.
Lennon and McCartney, if you will.
That's right, and they were like friends since from the age of
Vicious and Rotten.
Right, yeah, friends from the age of 13,
mm-hmm.
and they have their ups and downs, and it's a big thematically the movie is very much about their relationship and like kind of the love between them and the hate between them and suggesting, I don't know,
possible erotic tension.
Yeah, some erotic tension, especially involving like a woman that they both may have slept with or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's thematically kind of in there. But what's happened is the band broke up in 1991, and the film is from 1996. So Billy Talent went and joined a kind of a big American punk band named Jennifer.
Mm-hmm. LA based.
LA based. So it's like he's going to have like a big career and make a lot of money playing in that band, but he comes back to Vancouver to do a benefit show with Hardcore Logo. So it's a reunion performance for the band. They're raising money along with other bands for a punk legend named Bucky Haight.
Well, the money's not for him. It's for the Coalition Against Gun Ownership.
I thought it was for Bucky Haight.
No, it's inspired because Bucky Haight was allegedly shot, and then his leg, either one or two of his legs, were amputated because he was shot. Heinously just shot by someone in the leg or legs, and then they want to have a fundraiser to, I don't think the money's supposed to go to Bucky Haight. It's supposed to go to this coalition, because remember the woman for the Coalition Against Gun Ownership is there.
Yeah, I mean, we hear her voice, and this is offered a bit as a joke. I think the movie's offering it a bit as a joke. It's like, we're going to ban guns forever or something.
They're going to make all gun ownership illegal in Canada. That's their goal.
That's their goal, right? And I don't know what the movie's attitude towards that position actually is.
Well, it's not really a position that anyone has or has had that I know of.
Yeah, I think it's offered a bit as a joke.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the money...
Who the money's going to. Well, like the woman from the coalition at the show was like, we raised $20,000 tonight or whatever.
Yeah, but... Okay. But I thought they were...
Gonna give it to Bucky Haight. I guess it doesn't really.
No, but I mean, it's part of the movie that I think Joe stole some of that money. Like, is using that money to pay for gas and stuff on the tour.
So maybe he said some of the movie was for Bucky Haight and kept it for himself. So Bucky Haight we learn that he is this kind of punk rock legend, and he was the inspiration for Joe Dick as a kid, and he like his sort of idol. And we see pictures of him, and he's this kind of tall, gaunt looking Iggy Pop kind of looking guy. And we kind of learn that he's this sort of anti-establishment type, and that Joe Dick is inspired by him to also be anti-establishment. Whereas like Billy Talent has kind of decided to be a little bit more okay with establishment.
I like the conceit of this character Bucky Haight, as they're doing this reunion tour in honor of Bucky Haight as a fundraiser for this guy who was supposedly shot in the leg, and they're like, oh, he lost a leg
or two.
Someone said they lost 2 legs. And I just like how he's for much of the movie he's just like invoked a little like as a kind of like the spirit of punk who's now missing, who's like elsewhere.
That's right. There's a lot of like pictures, shrine-like pictures of him.
Yeah, I think this idea of Bucky Haight as the embodiment of the spirit of punk, but he's not there, and he's in Saskatoon, and so we know that they're going to run into him eventually.
He's in rural Saskatchewan.
Yeah, so they're going to
run into him. Which is a really funny place for the spirit of punk to be.
It is, and I guess we'll save the description of who Bucky Haight really is once we see him later. Joey Ramone is in the movie. He makes an appearance as himself. Says, Bucky Haight was a good friend of mine. When someone shoots your friend, you have to do something about it, as Joey Ramone says. There's a Ramone song used a couple of times in this movie. It's I think it's called Tour or Touring or something.
He's at the fundraiser. That's how he's in the movie. He's like, they're interviewing people outside the fundraiser who are there to like in Vancouver to see Hardcore Logo, and he's one of them.
So the movie, one of the early scenes in the movie is the fundraising concert. It was a real concert, took place at the Commodore, famous music venue in Vancouver. And those are real bands. They're real bands who are playing.
Mm-hmm.
I could have looked up who they were, but there's a bunch of them. I'm not like an aficionado of the punk scene of the 90s in Canada. And then Hardcore Logo come out and they play their songs. And it's like, you know, Hugh Dillon and Callum Keith Rennie and the other two guys. And the music is like taped and so they're basically lip syncing to the music.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody there at first thinks it's a real punk band. They just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then they do this song again and they do it again. And then so it has to be explained to the crowd eventually that they're recording a film.
Oh,
That's why they keep playing the song over and over again, and that Hardcore Logo is not a real band.
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So I guess Callum Keith Rennie was he was an up and coming actor. He'd done some significant stuff. Hugh Dillon hadn't done anything. And
I love that his name's Joe Dick. It's so stupid.
The naming is awesome in this. Like the name of the movie and the band, Hardcore Logo, is an amazing name. It is very, very, I mean, it is like a very good writer, a poet named this band. And Joe Dick and Billy Talent, like awesome names, for characters. And
Pipe fitter. And then
John
love
Oxenberg.
that his name is John Oxenberg.
Just a normal dude name.
John Oxenberg.
Burger. So it's just like a normal dude name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it's kind of like,
and he's the odd one out.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a conceit, like a sort of a comedic technique to do that, to have a bunch of funny names and then an ordinary name.
Well, John Oxenberger, who, so as they go on the tour, and it's clear that John Oxenberger, he's kind of the odd man out. He's quiet. He has a stutter. And he writes in his journal. And so we see him writing in his journal, and we get voiceovers that are his voice as
and it's
what
like
he's
this
writing.
Beat, like Jack Kerouac style.
Yeah.
Like introspection.
Yeah, and one of his entries is all about his name, and he says,
The names of the others. Yeah.
I never had a punk handle. I was just John. Maybe I never had a real self to throw away like these guys and the other guys in the band.
Yeah, and there's always this kind of like meditative music playing as he's doing the voiceover of his journal entries.
Yeah,
like he's like the deep one, and it's like his writing is both kind of good and poetic, but also like a little bit funny, and like how like over the top poetic and like Jack Kerouac-ish it actually is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's an earnestness to it that juxtaposes really hilariously like with everything else that's going on. Like at one point you hear his voiceover, and at the same time you're seeing Pipe Fitter with like his shirt pulled off, and he's like playing with his belly fat and laughing.
He's like playing with his belly button or something.
He's like holding his spare tire and like jiggling it around.
Two different levels here, yeah. And
yeah.
John Oxenberger is like, is having like a serious existential crisis.
Yes.
At the same time. So yeah, I mean everybody in the band, like the four characters are really well drawn. And there's nice contrast between them. And that really makes the movie work. So basically, like Joe Dick is the guy who's stuck on Hardcore Logo, even though the band broke up 5 years ago. He's not doing anything else. Billy Talent has gone off to the States and is having a big career, and he only came back as a favor, basically, to his old friend. And but now they had a good time, and they're going to go on a 5-city tour. And
the other two were just kind of living their lives. Like they both seem to be in serious relationships.
Yeah, they both have girlfriends.
And John Oxenberger seems to have like quite a nice life, and this like really nice, beautiful girlfriend, and they're all like out in nature together doing stuff. And Pipe Fitter seems to have like a more sort of codependent relationship, but nonetheless a relationship.
Yeah. So the film crew is going with them to make the movie, and so Bruce McDonald becomes a bit of a character in the movie as they talk to the camera. They're like, "Bruce, your movies suck," or whatever.
Yeah.
And Bruce, like, a couple of times like says something that is important to the movie. So there's this dynamic where filmmaker, it's like a meta kind of construction.
He affects the story a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. So okay, they go out on the road. There's a funny scene where they're talking with this skeezy promoter who's just like this old guy with big glasses, and he's like, yeah, let's see, they're going to 5 cities.
I think that's Terry David Mulligan, wasn't it?
I don't know who that is.
Oh, he was like this media personality. He was on like Much Music and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He was like, well, they're going to 5 cities. They're gonna get $1,000.
Yeah, actually, he's playing himself because they refer to him as Mulligan.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, they do.
Do they say they're gonna get $5,000? But then there's gas and there's the hotels and
I think they're getting 6,000.
15%, and it's like, well, basically they're doing it for the love of the music.
Yeah.
So they're driving through the BC mountains. It's snowy. A couple of places they stop. It looks like it's the interior. I know they went to the BC interior.
It's funny because a lot of the reviews from the time that I was just looking at are like, written by must be like Ontarians, and they talk about the landscape as like being like so desolate and having this like Fargo-esque quality of just like snowy expanses.
Oh, well, this is 1996, so Fargo's on everyone's mind.
Yeah, but it's just funny because to us, like that's just what it looks like outside when you go for a drive. Like we're used to that landscape, and like to me it's a beautiful landscape. The mountains and like this, the snowy expanses, like I don't see that as desolate, but it's funny because the reviewers are all like, oh, the landscape itself is so funny that these people are like punk rock, but they're also in the middle of nowhere and these like.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what it's like to be a Canadian band on tour.
Yeah.
If you're doing the Western cities, like you're driving a long way.
Yeah.
And you're driving through the mountains and it's snowy and it's beautiful and it's dangerous. And so you do get that. They're on the road enough in the movie to show that. Mm-hmm. Like there's these long scenes, like the long nights behind the wheel. They're trying to keep each other awake. They're smoking and drinking. And it's dangerous. Like at one point they're driving a shitty old van that the promoter got for them, and pipe fitter steps through the floor of the van that's like rusted out, and he's like
they're still going and his legs
and they're still driving 100 kilometers plus on the highway, and he had been freaking out because they had stopped at a diner and didn't wake him up, so he didn't have his rest stop and he didn't get his sandwich he wanted, and he's like threatening that he was going to pull out his penis and just pee right in the middle of the van if they didn't stop. And at that moment, his foot goes through the floor of the van. And then he pees himself. And you're just like, oh, yeah. And it's like, so there's a lot of moments like that in the movie where there's a sense of danger. Like these guys are loose cannons.
Yes.
Not just pipe fitter. They all are loose cannons except Billy. In some way, they're all loose cannons except Billy Talent.
Yes, basically. That's right. And it's also like, part of it is like, it's dangerous and it's kind of, things are shoddy and stuff. And part of it, I think, is like the implication is like maybe you could do this in like your teens and 20s, but in your 30s, which these guys are in their 30s. They're too old to be in a broken down van, living this way. And it's funny because like watching it now, of course, like we're a lot older than the characters, and like I was just thinking about how I still know people our age and older, like mid 40s to mid 50s, that are like still in bands and stuff. And even like who are still kind of have a punk rock aesthetic. And it doesn't seem, anyway, it's just really funny. It is funny that in your mid 30s, it seems like you're over the hill for that kind of thing. But then by the time you're in your mid 40s, like.
Yeah, over the hill for the music.
Yeah.
For punk music.
For the lifestyle. Like, I mean, because obviously, like, they're not over the hill. And like Billy Talent wouldn't be crazy to continue being a professional musician. It's just they're over the hill to be like in a band that gets paid $6,000 for a gig.
For 5 gigs.
Right.
For travel.
Yeah.
And for like risking their lives.
Yeah.
To drive there and then through the mountains.
Yeah.
So they roll into Calgary. This is their first gig. They arrive because they're driving from Vancouver at night. So we get a silhouette of the Calgary Tower and the Saddle Dome. Now, the film crew they got footage maybe at some point themselves, or maybe this is stock footage, because everything was filmed in BC. So except for some of those establishing shots.
I was wondering
they really did all the stuff in Vancouver, the interior shooting. So we're in the venue, everybody's rocking out. And like I think they have a good time. I mean, I think that basically that first, I try to remember is something bad happened in Calgary? I don't think so. I think I think everything's fine in Calgary.
Yeah, Calgary loves them.
Calgary loves them. Calgary's like a good punk music scene. But then John's diary.
He does have a funny diary entry about the Calgarians.
Oh, what does John say about the day?
I can't remember like the actual words, but he's just talking about how the audience's faces in different cities are different, and like the smug Toronto faces or whatever, and the like separatist cigarette smoking Montreal faces or whatever.
Oh, he says that.
Yeah. And then he really likes
separatist faces.
Yeah, and then he likes the like friendly Calgary faces.
Yeah, people are friendly in Calgary.
Although then he says they'll do anything they're told or something. And then I was like, oh, I felt defensive as a adoptee of Calgary myself.
John is like getting, his arc as he gets progressively unhinged. So he does have a bit of a school shooter energy, like as he's doing his monologues. And yeah.
Like verging on a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I would say by the time this movie ends.
By the time it ends, but yeah, like we're missing an important thing, which is that he loses his meds. At one point, he's going through his luggage and he can't find his medication.
Yeah, so he's unraveling, and it's because he's mentally ill, and he's going off of his medication and stress, of course, of being on this terrible tour and all of that stuff. So that is like a mounting, like the movie like the tension mounts, and it's just kind of like a vague feeling of doom, like everything's is going wrong.
Oh, everything is
like everybody's bad, like basically everybody's getting worse essentially.
Well, I mean, I was like terrified for John, as you know, like when you realize like his medication is gone and it's something serious, and then Pipefitter says it was lithium, which is a medication for bipolar disorder, which is like very serious.
Very serious, yeah.
And to suddenly stop taking medication is like disastrous.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to the medication. Like it got lost or someone stole it. I mean, they had their stuff stolen.
We never find out what happened to it.
So they had their stuff stolen at one point too. So maybe that was I don't know if that was in the mix. But so in Regina, they're on the road again, and Regina's where things start to get a little bit worse for them. So Billy gets a phone call, and it's we get like a voicemail message. Sorry, bud, the other guitarist is out of rehab, so he lost his spot in Jennifer, the big American band. It's
Jennifer, like a fur coat.
How's it spelled? Is it J? It's Genifur, something like that.
Genifur.
It's with a J, not a G.
Yeah,
I thought it was with a G.
Pretty sure it's with a J.
Oh, whatever. It's not spelled the normal way. So, so basically, just like that, Billy Talent, who thought he had his way out of hardcore logo, was like.
Well, his way out of being a struggling musician.
Yeah, he doesn't have it anymore. In Regina, they're playing to a smaller crowd, I would say, than they had in Calgary, and they're playing a song called "Something's Gonna Die Tonight." Great. I mean, the songs are great. I mean, they're really fun, like really, really fun. So obviously, that's a theme, a theme of the movie too. You're like, oh, what's gonna die? Like, it's like really bad. Something bad's gonna happen. There's Mary the fan. Now this is fun. Like behind. So this is like backstage after the show. She's a nutty fan, clearly a groupie, and like Joe Dick comes up to her, like, Mary, how you doing? Kisses her on the lips, and it's like clear, like Billy Talent has had a relationship with her too, and but Billy Talent's like really drunk that night because he was upset about having lost his spot in Jennifer, and it's really Mary the fan is so funny. It's like Joe Dick kisses her on the lips, like I said, and then the camera pulls out, and she's there with her husband and her kid, and they look like the most white bread, like they look like the most white bread suburban, like uptight.
She's like an ex-groupie who's like become a regular suburban mom.
Yeah, and then like Billy talks to her. And then
brought her family to the punk show.
Then like Billy's talking to her on the side. He's like, "Hey Mary, how's it going?" And it's like.
Her daughter's name is Billy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. That's what happens. Billy's talking to the daughter, and she's like, "Yeah, her name is Billy."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Huh?" And so he's wondering. So there's like, and he's had sex with her clearly, and he's wondering, like I wonder a little bit. Anyway, so then there's like basically John. So John, like kind of the weirdo John. He like he's talking to Mary too at some point, and he like I think he makes up a story about I'm not sure if the
Yeah,
story...
he seems to make up
I don't know
story.
if it's making it up or if he's being honest. And this is something like a reveal for the audience as well, that there is some story where Joe and Billy had sex.
Yeah.
And that was essentially the punchline of a joke, or it was a real story he was telling. And
he tells it very straight face.
He tells it straight, but and Mary is like she
100% believes that.
She believes it, and she's upset.
Yeah.
And she actually leaves at that point. It's like the fact that those two would be lovers, that that disrupts her romantic
but also
fantasy.
He kind of implies that Joe raped Billy.
I don't remember. I don't think it's that part that would bother her so much. I think it was the fact that they would be gay lovers, but she's someone who slept with both of them, and so that upsets her. It seems to upset her.
Yeah,
so,
I have to say that part confused me. I didn't really get it. Why
some
he
back
said
and forth
it, and why she was so upset. I didn't.
Well, I just think I think maybe she doesn't want to sleep with gay men.
Is that it? Or I thought she was just like the fact that he would say that and she thinks he's screwing with her, or is a really disturbing thing to say.
Well, she's there for Billy and for Joe.
Yeah.
And she doesn't care about John, but John tells she doesn't care if John is offensive to her.
Right.
It's not about John, it's about what he tells her about Joe and Billy.
But if we don't think it's true, why would she believe it when I just don't know. I have to say that scene, I don't get it.
I think, the only explanation for it is what I said, I think.
That they really did have sex.
No, or John is making it up.
Yeah, okay. But then Mary's upset because she doesn't want them to be gay.
Yeah, exactly. And she's not attracted to them now or whatever. That disrupts her romantic fantasy about them. I feel like that's what's going on. That's my best interpretation. Pipe fitter's playing with the daughter, also named Billy. He's made a creature out of sandwich parts stuck together with toothpicks. It's like a sandwich bun with tomatoes and cucumbers stuck to it, and he's walking it along, going wah wah, making monster sounds. That's basically Pipe Fitter.
Oh, now I get. So then in the next, okay, yeah. So and then there's the scene where Billy and Joe are in the diner talking, and Billy asked Joe if he ever slept with Mary.
Yeah.
And he says yes once. And then he's like, was it 6 years ago? And he was like, no, way longer. And I just got it because the daughter looks like she's about 6.
Yeah. So they're wondering. Yeah, he's wondering if
one of them is
that might be his daughter.
Yeah.
Because she named her after Billy.
Yeah, and he slept with her 6 years ago.
And fast forward to the end. There's that classic thing when they, at the end of the movie, they give us a bit of text. Where are they now? What are they doing now? And Billy is in the middle of a custody battle. That's what it says.
Oh, did it say that?
Yes.
Okay, I missed that.
So it's suggesting he's trying to get that daughter, I think.
Oh, well, he shouldn't do that.
Probably not.
Maybe it doesn't mean that.
Yeah. So that night after the gig, they're in a diner. They're having a late night bite. And they meet some girls, and the girls introduce themselves, and the punchline to the conversation is that, it's like, what do you do? So we're working. So they're sex workers, basically. And Billy's like, no, I don't think we should. But Joe does. The next morning, turns out that these women stole all of Joe's and the band's money, because Joe had all the money from the gig from the night before.
Oh, okay, I missed that. Thank you for explaining that.
They're in Winnipeg. They drive to Winnipeg, but of course tensions are mounting now. And they're mad about having lost the money. This is where, at this point, John has lost his medication too. So I wonder if that was snatched.
By
those girls. Yeah, maybe.
Is that when it happens?
Yeah, it's around then.
Okay.
They get to Winnipeg and the venue has closed. It's closed for business. They've been shut down because
they lost their license.
They lost their liquor license. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, we don't have a gig. We're not going to get paid tonight. We lost last night's money." And so that things are really not going well for the band right now. There's a nice scene though. They're arguing in front of a setting sun. There's a red sky in the background, and the band members are like silhouettes on the road as they're as they're saying some silly stuff. But it's a really, really lovely scene. Now this is where we have the hiatus visiting Bucky Haight in rural Saskatchewan. The band arrives at his farm. And Bucky is this skinny British guy. He speaks with a British accent. He is a real British actor. and the camera pans down and like Bucky has both of his legs, like he's completely fine. And so we find out that Joe, just kind of used Bucky for basically to make some money, and partly so they could.
But he
fund
agreed
this
to
tour.
go visit him, knowing the guys are going to find out.
Yeah, he still agreed to visit him because Joe loves Bucky so much. They're like, okay, so who's this Bucky guy? Why is he so important to Joe? Why is he so important to the spirit of punk rock? So they try to show this to us in a scene in the kitchen where they're all like huddled around this kitchen in the farmhouse and they're drinking martinis.
Mm-hmm.
And they there's a pitcher of martini, like mixed martini, and they're just like pouring it in martini glasses. Yeah. So that's like so much. They're just like drinking straight liquor. And Bucky's just kind of going on about stuff. I have to be honest. I loved the idea of this like the symbolism of Bucky hate. Mm-hmm. When they get there, I'm a little bit like, oh, that's all this guy is. I guess you're set to be let down a bit. He's just basically saying like he doesn't like the music business. He says, quote, people only want to fucking use you. They're just gonna use you. Yeah. And then it so
he's a recluse now. He's like a J.D. Salinger of punk rock.
Yeah, he lives with his younger girlfriend.
Yeah,
basically.
Naomi.
Naomi is her name. So now probably the best part of the Bucky hate visit is that night they all take acid.
But wait a minute, you're missing the fact you kind of skimmed over the fact that he has both of his legs, and we realized that.
No, I didn't skim over.
Okay, but I just want to be clear that the reason that that Joe Dick pretended his legs had been shot off was to make the other band members come back. Because he wants Hardcore Logo to get back together permanently. Like, he thinks that if he could just get them back together, they would stay together. Yeah, that's what he wants.
So Joe is so invested in this, right? And Billy's doing other things and he's doing bigger and better things. The other two guys are just like, man, they could do whatever, sort of.
So it's really about Billy. It's like luring Billy back. It's not really about the money that he wanted to raise. It's more about luring Billy back, I think.
Yeah. So he was being used. I mean, Bucky was being used by Joe. And so that by the end of the visit, that's clear. Like Bucky confronts Joe. He's like, you used me. And remember, oh yeah, that's the thing that Bucky hates the worst.
Yeah. Used. Okay. So let's go back to the acid.
So the best thing about the visit was they do acid that night together.
Including Bruce McDonald and the camera guy and everybody.
Everybody does acid, so it's this psychedelic, fun and perverse montage where everyone's dancing around a bonfire. There's like knife play where they're like licking a knife.
They sacrifice a goat.
There's like zoom in on a scarecrow, people like with their shirts off, and Bucky's wearing a top hat and goth makeup and stuff, and then pipe fitter, like at one point they zoom in on him and he's like got a chainsaw. And then you're like, what? And then there's like, everyone everyone else is like holding down a goat. There's like, because they're on a farm, right? So there's some farm animals, and so just like they've got a goat, and like so they show, like they imply with some of the shots, like pipe fitter like cuts the goat up. Like decapitates them.
Yeah, and then they're all covered in blood.
And then they're all covered in blood after that, and someone's holding the goat head after that. No, it's not no goats were harmed.
I have to admit, having like a montage where people are on drugs is like
pretty standard.
It's pretty standard, and I feel like it's a hard thing to do well. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's hard to do it without it just seeming like that scene in The Doors. I mean, that was the first time I saw it done. Was that, and maybe it's kind of like a reference to that, but like when the band is on acid and they're like all like having epiphanies or whatever.
I don't remember that. I probably saw the Doors movie.
But... Okay. I mean, I don't know if it probably wasn't, I'm sure it wasn't the first time, but like they all take acid and then like the camera, like they use like cinematic effects to show like the lights going weird and people stretching and things moving weirdly and psychedelic music. And I mean, I guess it's done lots and lots of movies and books, and like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Like the last book I wrote has a drug scene in it.
Yeah, so what's your point here?
I just don't know if I like it.
Oh, well, it was supposed to be funny. Like they were like, the tone of this movie, it can be like harshly comic at times.
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, this is a joke now.
Yeah.
Like, and this is supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
And And
I mean, I think it's supposed to be funny.
well, I think it is. Like this is partly it's a mockumentary, and so
Yes.
it's a partly mocking music documentaries,
Yeah.
music movies. So I think it is kind of playing with that.
So it's like mocking the drug
it goes
scene.
totally over the top by like they actually sacrifice a goat,
Yes.
and then they all drink goat's blood.
Yeah, they drink it.
We don't really.
Right.
I don't know if we kind of see that a little bit, but they say it later. It's like, hey man, we all drank goat's blood.
And I was just reading that might be an allusion to the Apocalypse Now, that there's like a cow sacrifice.
Yeah, that's right. Doom 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 doom.
I've never seen Apocalypse Now, which I hate to admit.
Oh no, they actually kill a cow on screen.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah, they like with a machete. They chop its head.
Jesus.
Yeah. So they leave Bucky's place the next day. Oh yeah, Pipefitter looks so hilariously fucked up the next day. His like face is swollen and totally covered in blood, and he's like,
they're all covered in blood. They don't take showers apparently.
Yeah. So and Bucky's so mad at Joe, basically like, look, don't ever come here again if you think you want to. Don't ever. So basically, Joe, who idolized Bucky, has now alienated his hero. So that's like, I guess, one blow against Joe's, psyche here. So,
but then he immediately does it again in the next show and says, "No, Bucky is dead." He tells the audience that Bucky's dead.
Well, and that's supposed to symbolize that Bucky's dead to Joe, right?
But also that he's still using him.
Well, he's not really using him. He's just talking shit at that point. He's not getting anything out of it, right?
I guess so.
Yeah, Joe doesn't get anything out of that. He's just like expressing how he doesn't care about Bucky anymore. In Saskatoon, there's like 5 people at the show. So like as a sign of John's descent
into madness.
Yeah, like
he looks like a goth now.
He's like, in his last show, he was wearing half of his face was in white makeup. And like now all of his face is in white makeup. It's like, okay, so he's gonna blow anytime now, Yeah. So okay, the next gigs in Edmonton, they're staying in a band house.
Like the Joker.
Yeah, the Joker is becoming more and more of the Joker. So the next show, they're in Edmonton. This is the last show. They're staying in what's called a band house. So it's just like a house that the venue owns, and they're staying there. And then there's like a student who like lives in the house and takes care of it. And so at this point, like, because Billy does not have his gig with Jennifer anymore, he's like planning another big show in the future for Hardcore Logo. Like Joe and Billy are going to have a big concert in Toronto where they might be able to sell 30,000 tickets or something. Right? That's what they're thinking. So it's like, oh, okay, there's hope for Hardcore Logo in the future. What else happens when they're in this band house? Pipefitter steals John's diary and reads it aloud to everybody. And John shows up and he grabs it and he's like, yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's supposed to be embarrassing, I guess, that people hear John's diary entries. But like for us, it's not embarrassing at all because we've been hearing his diary entries the whole time.
Well, is that, I mean, yeah. And it's not like the diary entry is like partly about how like he's so glad he's with these guys because they're the only ones he can be himself around and stuff. And then they're all like, that's hilarious. What a loser. Ha ha ha. So like he's really.
But they're not. Only Pipefitter's laughing. Everyone else is just like, Billy's like, you shouldn't be doing that.
But then afterwards, they like, well, it was funny, and they laugh.
To break, yeah, I guess so. But it's kind of like always supposed to break the tension now.
I guess
John
so.
is wearing a red pajama onesie. And he sets his journal on fire after that. So we're like, uh-oh, John is really going to break now.
Yeah, he's descending.
Yeah, so there's kind of a 4-screen shot where everybody is talking to the camera, all 4 band members. So it's like they're all talking at once. So it's like, oh yeah, they're not communicating with each other. Everybody's in their own little space, right?
Nice.
So Billy finds out though that he's suddenly like, this is truly kind of a Deus Ex Machina kind of thing. Like, oh, another letter's arrived. No, he's got the job with Jennifer again.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay. And so like he's keeping that secret though. He hasn't told Joe yet. But the film crew find out because the film crew are there when Billy gets the message. So they're at the show, at the Edmonton show. And now this is the show where John has his full body white makeup on. He's fully broken now. In the last show, sorry, I had it wrong. In the last show, he was half white. And they're doing this "Something's Gonna Hey Die Tonight" song again. And like on stage, Joe and Billy are kind of like Billy's having fun because he's in a good mood because he's got his big gig back. But Joe's like clearly upset. And they're like, you know, Billy and Joe are sharing the microphone at times. But like Joe's like kind of pushing him away.
Yeah.
But Billy's insisting on like singing in his microphone still. And so they're kind of pushing back and forth.
Oh, you forgot something really important.
Okay.
When Bruce McDonald, did you say this, says to...
Yeah, he's revealed to Joe. He's like, before the show, he's like, oh, yeah. I have to be honest, like the stuff with the camera guy, like with Bruce McDonald as a character, is pretty basic. There's hardly really
but that moment is important when he's like, so what do you think about Billy leaving the band?
Yeah, and then Joe's like, what? I thought, he says a surprise at that point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because like, Bruce McDonald's now he's mad. He's mad at the band because in an earlier scene they were all basically Pipe Fitter was like yelling at Bruce McDonald like your movies suck, like Highway 69, and then he does like a cunnilingus thing, or is this like being vulgar and mean, and so that we're supposed to think that's enough to alienate Bruce McDonald or something. So Bruce McDonald's taking revenge, and now he's like, yeah, well, Joe, Billy's leaving the band now. You didn't know that, did you? Mm-hmm. Anyway, and so that's really upset Joe now. And on stage there's all that tension, like I said, and basically Joe like he's like he speaks to the crowd at the end of the show. He's like, okay, not only is this the end of a very successful reunion tour, but it's the end of Billy Talent's life. And he like punches Billy right on stage, and he starts beating him up, and they're fighting. And at the same time, John is just like, because he does backup vocals, he's just reciting his experimental poetry like into the microphone while Joe is beating up Billy. And it's like his poetry is like stuff like, I bit the head of a zit, a cowboy man, rock and roll soul, out of control, just like just like word association and stuff. And and
I thought he was just making it up on the spot.
Like he might have been improvising. And but at the end he's like, and in the end it's love, and in the end it's love, and in the end it's love. And he just keeps repeating that line over and over again. So it's like, okay, this is kind of commentary on Billy and Joe's relationship.
And meanwhile they're fighting, and
then they're fighting
bloody.
And anyway, then it's like basically the fight stops, and Pipe Fitter like goes up to John and like takes the microphone away from him, and Pipe Fitter's like, thank you very much, Edmonton, good night. Like it's like a radio guide or like a happy announcement. So Joe Dick is outside after the gig, and he's got a big bottle of liquor, and he's like talking to the camera, Bruce McDonald, and he's like, one more shot. He's like, come on, Bruce, let's just do one more shot. And he's passing him the liquor bottle. And then all of a sudden, in a surprise move,
he says, oh, what is it? Cheers and salut.
Yeah. And then Joe Dick pulls out a gun and shoots himself in the head. Now they don't really, like, it's done in a way, like they don't have any special effects to show a guy's being shot. So they just kind of swing the camera in a way so you don't really see. But he shoots himself in the head and falls down. And so that was a surprise ending.
And then Bruce McDonald's like, oh my God.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So that ending was not in the book. That's not how the book ends. The book ends with simply an ad in a newspaper, like a classified ad, put in there by Joe, saying, my name is like Joe whatever, formerly Joe Dick of Hardcore Logo. I'm looking for new band members. They have to be under 30 years of age. So that's how the book ends.
Hilarious.
And they had planned a similar ending, something similar tone anyway, for the movie. But Hugh Dillon insisted on this ending. He convinced everybody that they needed to do it.
That's the only plausible ending for this character.
Yeah, that's the only possible ending for this character. And like it does work. Like it does seem like, if we're ratcheting up the tension the whole time, like it has to kind of end like this. Like the fight on stage doesn't really feel climactic enough, to be honest. You know, I don't know. How did you respond?
I mean, like I did know that that's how the film ended, so it's not like I came in fresh. But to me, it does feel like I get it. It doesn't like there. I guess so. Yeah, there are parts of this movie that feel extremely realistic.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning, if you didn't know, like it might take you a while to realize it's not
a documentary.
Not a documentary.
Yeah, they really made it look like a convincing mockumentary.
Yeah. They really did. And like the music is actually good.
Yeah, it's like real punk music that a punk band and punk singers did.
Yeah. And like
And
the
they have
show is real
and is a real punk guy, you know, on camera a lot. And he was basically like a creative consultant for the movie. Like he taught
Hugh Dillon.
Yeah. Like he taught like what's his name? Callum Keith Rennie. He taught him like, okay, you have to hold your guitar like this.
Okay.
It's gonna look bad because you don't know how to play the guitar. So make sure you're turned around a lot. You may have noticed this, that he's often turned around. Like they don't see his hand strumming the guitar incorrectly very much.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of cheats to the performance that like Hugh Dillon helped him with.
So anyway, like it feels real.
Yeah. For
a lot of it, and then there's part and like not just because for the reasons that we said, that kind of verisimilitude, but also like the emotional authenticity of the characters and the way they behave and react to things and so on. I mean, when you start to realize like it couldn't be real, I mean, there's things that couldn't really happen in a mockumentary. Like the diary voiceovers could be real, but probably not, right? But yeah, obviously the acid trip like can't be real because like the camera itself seems to be on acid.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so my point being, the suicide at the end, to me, feels like more about something that would happen in a movie than something that would happen in real life.
Yeah, for sure.
It does. It's like very, very over the top behavior. And like most people in that situation, like 99.9% of the, you know, Joe Dicks in the world in such a situation would walk away from that feeling like shit, but not commit suicide on the spot.
Yeah, because Joe Dick doesn't really seem like that kind of a guy, to be honest. Like in a lot of ways, like he's intense or whatever, but
yes.
But like I think in the end, no, I mean I take that back a little bit. Like that's the thing. You're like, which way? Like that's the suspense of the movie too. It's like, which way are these guys gonna go? Because they are intense and they're weird and they're messed up, but they're also like. Joe Dick also loves what he does.
You just have to think like, oh, at that point you just have to think, oh, Joe Dick is more messed up than I thought. Like you kind of revisit.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, like this band is everything to him.
Yes. And you can see that like when you think back, like, oh yeah, when he was saying this.
Yeah.
You're asking him like what he's going to do after Hardcore Logo. And he's like, oh, we'll see. Yeah.
Like he really doesn't have a plan. And he really doesn't believe that Hardcore Logo is not going to stay together forever.
Yeah.
Like when Bruce McDonald asks him, like, are you still going to be doing this at 45? Like he's basically like, yeah, what's wrong with that? And like you learn that they did have a chance for a major record deal, and he
destroyed it.
So like he didn't.
He peed on a record executive. It was like their final show.
Yeah, he peed in their drink.
He peed in his drink.
Yeah. So like he wants to remain like a underground punk musician forever.
Yeah.
And he wants for Billy Talent to be there with him, and he and the other two, I guess, if like he kind of wants them to, and like he can't really conceive of that not happening, and he's forced it to happen by pretending that Bucky Haight was shot. Yeah, and now he just thinks that he's won and they're going to be together forever.
Yeah,
and he doesn't like that Billy is going to go be in Jennifer part-time, which is what he thinks at first. Mm-hmm. But then upon learning that Billy is like quitting, like his entire life becomes meaningless, I guess, is what we have to glean.
Yeah. I mean, I think that final act shows how important, all those things you said, like, okay, that was there before. Mm-hmm. Just didn't realize like how important or how hopeless he was without Hardcore Logo.
Like the cognitive dissonance is too much to take. Like he can't actually exist in a world without a Hardcore Logo. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hugh Dillon insisted on that rewrite. Mm-hmm. And sold Bruce McDonald on it, but the producer was like, what? No, like you have to, at least film the other ending. Mm-hmm. And Bruce McDonald refused to. Mm. So it was like a real punk move. It's like, well, this isn't in the script, so our distributor can say that this is breach of contract because this is a major change to the script. Mm-hmm. And so we're risking this movie not even being distributed if you don't at least give us the option of the other ending, the written ending. And Bruce McDonald said no. And so they had a big fight about that, but they just didn't film the other ending. And in the end, they distributed the film, and it was a critical success.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
distributed in the States. It didn't make any money. It played a bit in theaters, I guess, but it didn't really make any money. But it became a hit on video, and was like a kind of a cult underground classic since then, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
And it launched a career for Hugh Dillon. He ended up having an acting career that went longer than his music career. I think the Headstones, I don't remember when they stopped, at what point they stopped. I think Hugh Dillon started another band. Well, in the meantime, he was acting a bunch. But they're back together now. I know that Headstones are doing a reunion tour this summer. In fact, they're in Alberta right now.
Are they?
And I think I looked it up. I was like, wow, okay, tomorrow night they're playing a show in Rimbey.
Hilarious.
In Rimbey, Alberta, which is like 2 hours from here.
Yeah.
It's like at the Speedway.
Okay.
The Rimbey, whatever it's called, but it's like a Speedway in Rimbey.
Amazing.
Anyway, so the Headstones still going.
Yeah, and they're a lot older than
Hugh Dillon making more money than ever, for sure. He's like a co-creator on a Taylor Sheridan
he's
show.
He's doing fine.
And so he's doing fine.
He's no Joe Dick.
The real Joe Dick ended up doing just fine. Yeah. So in the text at the end that says the legacy tells us about Joe Dick. It says that Joe Dick's body was stolen from Mount Pleasant Cemetery and never found again. So some crazy fan dug up his body. It's kind of funny. Billy Talent is currently the guitarist for Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
So said he was involved in a child custody battle that we're just to put 2 and 2 together and figure that out. John Oxenberger lives in Austin and is a country western singer now, which makes sense for him. It makes perfect sense for him.
Mm-hmm.
Pipe fitter is currently employed as a grip on Bruce McDonald's film. He's filming. What was it? Did you see? It was like a joke that Bruce McDonald would make this film.
Oh no, I didn't see.
I forget what it was. Oh yeah, it was Bruce McDonald's version of Anna Karenina.
Karenina.
Yeah.
Hilarious. That is really funny.
How do you say it?
Karenina.
Karenina?
Karenina.
All right. No one ever says it that way.
How did you say it?
Anna Karenina.
No, it's not Karenina. It's Karenina. You're missing a
Karenina?
syllable.
Anna Karenina?
Yeah, so her husband is Karenin, and she's Karenina.
So that's Hardcore Logo. Does this movie hold up? I think it's still pretty good. The music and the vibe is cool. I did find it a bit tedious at times. You're just because there's not a super strong through line narratively, and the arcs are not super clear,
No, I didn't find that. I found it. I really liked it. And also,
you liked all of it?
Yeah, because I used to go to a lot of punk shows in the 90s. It kind of took me back to that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, to be honest, I was looking forward to it being in Calgary, Edmonton, and all those other places. I've lived in both Calgary and Edmonton and been to almost all the other places.
Well, they weren't really in any of those places.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was sad to realize,
I
was like, oh, that's probably not really those places, because they don't show anything that's particularly.
No, you're always inside a venue immediately.
Or you're just outside a building that could be anywhere. Yeah. I liked seeing the landscapes. The landscapes of Western Canada are very precious to me.
Yeah.
I don't find them bleak. Like I said, I find them lovely.
Well, I mean, some of it's pretty bleak in the middle of winter and you're trying to drive through it.
It's bleak in a nice way.
Yeah, unless you're driving on an icy highway.
Well, yeah, the driving sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had some crazy, scary drives through the mountains in winter, remember?
It's brutal.
That time we went out to the ill-fated.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. So we're over time anyway, so.
All right.
Yeah. I mean,
we weren't hurt though.
No, we made it out okay. So that's Hardcore Logo. I'm glad that you visited it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Hey, I think you like us. You listened to the whole episode. If you want more sweater weather in your life, subscribe to the show on Patreon. As a patron, you'll get access to our premium episodes. And that means you'll be getting a brand new sweater weather every week. So go to patreon.com/Canadian Sweater for details.